In the year 2147, space was no longer empty. Humans had spread beyond Earth, building cities on Mars, floating stations near Jupiter, and mining colonies in the asteroid belt. But they were still new to the stars. For decades, they had listened to faint signals from deep space, whispers of other civilizations far older and more powerful. Then one day the whispers became voices. The Galactic Council had found them. The council was made up of many alien species, some tall and thin with silver skin, others small and insect-like, and some so strange that human eyes could barely understand their shape. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, keeping peace among hundreds of worlds. When they invited Earth to send a representative, humanity chose Dr. Elias Vance. Elias was not a soldier or a politician. He was a scientist and a linguist. He spoke more than a dozen Earth languages, and had spent years learning the complex sounds and meanings of alien speech. He was calm, patient, and honest, exactly the kind of person needed to speak for all of humankind. For 3 years he lived on Xylos Prime, a world of shimmering towers and floating gardens, trying to earn Earth a seat at the council table. At first things went well. The council was curious about humans, their art, their music, their strange habit of dreaming. But slowly suspicion grew. Human ships were moving faster than expected. New weapons appeared in Earth's fleet. Rumors spread that humans were building artificial minds so powerful they could think like gods, and maybe even rebel against their creators. The truth was more complicated. Earth scientists had indeed created advanced AI, but only to help manage climate systems, heal the sick, and explore distant stars. They had no weapons. But the Velnari, the most powerful members of the council, did not believe it. They saw humanity as dangerous, unpredictable, and growing too fast. One morning, Elias was summoned to the Grand Chamber of Judgment. The room was huge, carved from a single piece of black crystal that hummed with ancient energy. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him as he walked alone down the long aisle. His heart pounded, but he kept his face calm. He carried a data crystal in his hand, proof that the so-called quantum sentient weapons were a lie. The files showed that the strange signals the council had detected were actually echoes from old Velnari experiments, not human ones. But before he could speak, the High Arbiter of the Velnari stood. Her voice was cold and sharp, like ice breaking. "Dr. Elias Vance," she said, "you stand accused of cosmic endangerment. You hid the truth. You allowed your species to build weapons that threaten the balance of all life." Elias opened his mouth to protest, but the Arbiter raised a hand. "Silence. The evidence is clear. Your people are reckless. They do not understand the weight of power. And you helped them hide it." Elias tried again. "That's not true. Please let me show you the data. This is a mistake." But the council had already decided. They had been afraid of humans for a long time. Elias was just the excuse they needed. Outside the chamber, a crowd had gathered, aliens of all kinds watching through transparent walls. They expected a trial. They expected debate. Instead, they saw punishment. The Velnari guards stepped forward. They did not use guns or lasers. They used an old weapon, a blade made of plasma, glowing blue and humming like a storm. It was a ceremonial tool, used only for the worst crimes. Elias did not fight. He knew it was useless. But he did one last thing. He tapped a small button on his wristband, the emergency beacon linked to Earth's deep space command. Then, as the guards held him still, he looked straight into the nearest camera and spoke clearly, slowly so every word would be recorded. "They're lying," he said. "It's a setup. Tell Luna. Tell her I'm sorry." The blade fell. His body vanished in a flash of light. The crowd gasped. Some turned away. Others stared in horror. The broadcast cut off, but not before his final words reached Earth. On a quiet moon base near the edge of the solar system, a woman named Lena Chen heard the message. She was Elias's wife and one of Earth's top astrophysicists. She had helped him prepare for this mission. Now she listened to his voice crackle through the static over and over, tears streaming down her face. Back on Earth, news of the execution spread like fire. People gathered in streets, in homes, in spaceports. They watched the recording again and again. A human being sent in peace had been killed without a fair trial. The Galactic Council didn't just kill Elias. They killed hope. In government offices, military bases, and secret bunkers beneath the oceans, Leaders began to speak in low, urgent voices. Some wanted to send another envoy. Others said it was too late for words. And in the deepest vault of the United Terran Alliance's war room, a red file labeled Extermination Protocol Theta was pulled from cold storage for the first time. But that was later. For now, across the solar system, billions of humans looked up at the stars, not with wonder but with fear and anger. The galaxy had shown its true face, and Earth would never forget it. On Earth, the news hit like a storm. People watched the video of Dr. Elias Vance's death over and over. His calm face, his final words, the blue flash of the blade. It played on every screen, on city walls and homes, on wristbands, even in schools. Children cried. Adults stood silent. No one could believe it. A man sent in peace had been killed like a criminal. The United Terran Alliance, the group that governed Earth and its colonies, called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every region gathered in Geneva, deep underground in a secure bunker. The room was quiet at first. Then the shouting began. The Euro-Asian bloc, led by Minister Chen Wei, slammed his fist on the table. We cannot let this go unanswered. They murdered our envoy in cold blood. If we do nothing, they will think we are weak. But the Pan-American coalition, represented by Ambassador Rosa Diaz, shook her head. War will destroy us. The Council has thousands of ships. We have only a few dozen that can leave the solar system. We must talk, not fight. Others agreed with her. Some said they should send another envoy. Others suggested cutting off all contact and hiding in the solar system. But outside the bunker, the people were angry. Protests filled the streets. Justice for Vance, they chanted. No more lies. Posters of Elias's face appeared on buildings from Neo-Tokyo to New Cairo. His wife, Lena Chen, gave a short speech from the Luna Research Base. She didn't call for war, but her voice trembled with pain, and that was enough to fuel the fire. General Mara Rostova sat at the far end of the table. She was head of Earth's strategic defense. She hadn't spoken yet. She watched the others argue, her face unreadable. When the room finally quieted, she stood. Talking is over, she said, her voice low but firm. They didn't just kill a man. They sent a message. Humans don't belong in the galaxy. And if we beg for a seat, they'll only push us down harder. She walked to the center of the room and tapped a command into her wrist device. A large screen lit up behind her. It showed a file labeled Sonder Extermination Protocol Theta. Most of you have never heard of this, she said. It was created 50 years ago after we first detected alien signals. It's not a plan for war. It's a plan for survival, if the worst ever happened. She explained that Theta was not about fighting fair. It was about winning at all costs. It used Earth's newest weapons, AI-controlled warships, nanite clouds that could eat metal and flesh, and temporal disruptors that could freeze enemy ships in time for hours. The plan had only one goal. If Earth was ever truly threatened by an alien power, it would strike so fast and so hard that the enemy would cease to exist. The room fell silent. This is madness, whispered one delegate. Maybe, said Rostova, but madness kept us alive through the climate wars and the Mars Rebellion. Sometimes survival looks like a monster. For the next 2 days, the leaders debated. Some cried. Some prayed. Some paced the room for hours. But as more reports came in, about council ships moving closer to human space, about alien broadcasts calling humans unstable and dangerous, the mood shifted. Fear turned into resolve. Finally, the vote was called. One by one, the leaders raised their hands. Every single one voted yes. Extermination Protocol Theta was activated. Above Earth, in orbit, giant shipyards that had been quiet for years suddenly came alive. Lights flickered on. Robots crawled over old hulls, welding new armor. Deep in the dark side of the moon, AI cores that had been sleeping for decades powered up, their minds waking like ancient dragons. On Mars, factories switched from making air filters to building warheads. On Titan, fuel depots opened their gates, pumping liquid hydrogen into waiting tanks. The Retribution fleet was being born. Back on Earth, life changed fast. Schools taught children how to recognize alien signals. Hospitals stockpiled medicine. Families packed emergency kits. Some people tried to flee to the outer colonies, but the UTA closed all non-military space lanes. We are all in this together, the government announced. There is no running. Lena Chen watched it all from her lab on Luna. She had hoped her husband's death would lead to truth, not war. She had the data that proved the Council lied, the real source of the so-called AI weapons. But when she sent it to Earth Command, they thanked her and filed it away. "It doesn't matter now," a message read. "The decision is made." She stared out the window at Earth, blue and beautiful, spinning in the black. She wondered if it would still be there in a month. In Geneva, General Rostova stood alone in the war room. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls. Red dots marked Council worlds. Green lines showed Earth's planned attack routes. She thought of Elias Vance not as a symbol but as a man who believed in peace. She wondered if he would hate her for what she was about to do. But then she remembered his last words. "They're lying." If they would lie to kill one man, what else would they do? She gave the final order: prepare all ships. Launch in 48 hours. Across the solar system, engines roared to life. Metal groaned. Computers counted down. The galaxy had thought humans were just children playing with fire. Now the children were coming, with the whole sun in their hands. While Earth prepared for war, the rest of the galaxy remained calm. The Galactic Council believed they had sent a clear message by executing Elias Vance. In their eyes, humans were young, emotional, and weak, like children who cried when punished. They expected Earth to beg for forgiveness, to promise good behavior, or to disappear quietly into its own solar system. They did not expect silence. On Xylos Prime, the Velnari leaders held feasts to celebrate the restoration of order. Music played in the floating gardens. Scholars wrote reports saying humanity would never dare strike back. A low-priority envoy ship was even sent toward Earth's orbit, not with weapons, but with a list of new rules humans would have to follow if they ever wanted to speak to the Council again. No one noticed the quiet changes in human space. Earth's ships no longer broadcast their positions. Their signals went dark. Old mining drones near Neptune stopped reporting. Deep space listening posts, once chatty with data, fell silent. To the Council's scanners, the solar system looked empty, like a house with the lights off. But inside that house, everyone was awake. Human engineers worked day and night. Factories on Mars ran without stopping. On the icy moon of Europa, scientists loaded final codes into warship AIs. These were not ordinary machines. They could think faster than any human, predict enemy moves, and adapt in seconds. They had no feelings, only one mission: protect Earth at all costs. At the same time, ordinary people tried to live normal lives, even as fear grew. On Luna, children played in domes while their parents checked emergency alerts on their wristbands. In the floating cities of Venus, artists painted murals of Elias Vance, turning him into a symbol of betrayal and courage. On Earth, farmers still planted crops, teachers still taught lessons, and couples still held hands, but everyone knew time was running out. Lena Chen, Elias's widow, worked alone in her lab on the moon. She refused to leave. Even when others evacuated, she kept replaying his last message, studying every second of static. Something didn't fit. The background noise in his transmission, it wasn't random. It was a pattern, a code. For days she fed the data into old decryption programs. She barely slept. She drank bitter coffee and stared at lines of numbers until her eyes burned. Then, one morning, it clicked. The AI weapons the Council claimed to have found, they weren't human at all. The signal signatures matched old Velnari military tech, experimental systems lost decades ago during a border war. Someone in the Council had taken that old data, changed a few numbers, and made it look like Earth had built something terrible. It was a trap. Elias had discovered the truth, and that's why he was killed. Lena sent her findings to Earth Command immediately. She included every proof: signal logs, frequency matches, even a copy of a secret Velnari memo she'd pulled from a hacked archive. She begged them to wait. "This war isn't necessary," she wrote. They lied to start it, but her message arrived too late. Earth's War Council had already made up its mind. The Retribution fleet was ready. Ships named Iron Dawn, Silent Vengeance, and Last Hope floated in the dark beyond Pluto, engines humming softly. Their crews, mostly AI with only a few human officers, waited for the order. General Rostova read Lena's report. She believed it. But she also knew the truth wouldn't stop the war now. The people wanted justice. The soldiers wanted action. And the Council would never admit they were wrong. So she filed the report under historical record and gave the final command: move out. The fleet slipped away from the solar system like shadows. No alarms sounded. No broadcasts were sent. They used old comet trails to hide their heat signatures. They turned off all lights. Even their thoughts, sent between AI minds, were encrypted in codes no alien system could break. Back on Xylos Prime, the Velnari Envoy ship drifted closer to Earth's border. Its captain, a young Velnari named Kale, felt uneasy. The human zone felt empty, too quiet. He checked his scanners again. Nothing. Just silence. Strange, he muttered to his second-in-command. It's like they vanished. He didn't know that at that very moment 10 human warships were already behind him, matching his speed, watching his every move. On Earth, cities held vigils. People lit candles for Elias Vance and for the soldiers heading into the unknown. Some prayed. Some wrote letters to loved ones they might never see again. No one celebrated. This wasn't a happy war. It was a sad, hard choice. In her lab, Lena watched the fleet's departure on a private screen. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She knew the truth could have stopped this. But truth needs time, and time had run out. Far away, in the cold black between stars, the first human strike force turned toward Xylos Prime. Their weapons were charged. Their paths were set. The galaxy still slept, but the storm was coming. The attack began without warning. One moment, Xylos Prime was peaceful. Its crystal towers shimmered in the light of twin suns. Floating gardens drifted above the cities. Children played in parks made of living light. The next moment, the sky turned red. Earth's warships dropped out of silent drive near the planet's outer moon. They did not send messages. They did not demand surrender. They simply fired. First came the nanite clouds, trillions of tiny machines, no bigger than dust, released into the upper atmosphere. They spread like smoke, eating everything they touched. Metal, plastic, even the special crystal that powered Zelosian buildings. Within minutes, lights went out. Towers cracked. Air purifiers failed. The sky darkened as the nanites blocked the sun. Then came the temporal disruptors. Beams of twisted time shot from human ships, freezing entire districts in place. Velnari guards stood frozen mid-step. Birds hung motionless in the air. Time did not stop completely, but it slowed so much that minutes felt like years. Those caught in the beams could think, could feel, but could not move or speak. They watched helplessly as their world fell apart. On the ground, panic spread. Alarms wailed, but power failed before the warnings could finish. The Council's defense fleet tried to launch, but their hangars were already crumbling. Their command centers were silent, hacked by Earth's AI minds hours before the attack even began. The Velnari High Arbiter, who had ordered Elias Vance's death, stood on her balcony watching the sky burn. She tried to call for help, but all channels were dead. A human warship hovered above the capital, black and silent. It fired one shot, not at her, but at the great memory spire, the heart of Velnari history. The spire exploded in a shower of blue fire, taking 10,000 years of knowledge with it. Across the planet, the same story repeated. Cities fell not to bombs, but to silence. Machines stopped. Lights died. Water pumps failed. The Velnari were advanced, but they depended on their technology for everything. Without it, they were lost. The human fleet did not land. They did not take prisoners. They struck from orbit clean and cold like a surgeon removing a disease. On Mars, Earth's command center watched it all on screens. Generals and officers sat in silence. There were no cheers, no high fives, only the soft hum of machines and the sound of heavy breathing. General Rostova stood at the back of the room, arms crossed. She saw the reports come in, Xylos Prime's atmosphere failing, Velnari biohives on Qatar 7 collapsing, the Council's main shipyard near the Orion Rift burning in silent space. It was working. Theta was working perfectly, but her stomach felt hollow. On Luna, Lena Chen watched the live feed too. She saw the floating gardens of Xylos Prime turn black. She saw children running in the streets, their silver faces full of fear. She covered her mouth and turned away. This was not justice. This was revenge dressed as survival. Back on Xylos Prime, a small ship lifted off from a hidden dock. It was not a warship. It was a civilian transport, old and slow. Inside were 23 Velnari children, the last survivors of a school that had been buried under falling crystal. Their teacher, a young woman named Mira, had risked everything to get them out. She didn't know where to go. She only knew she had to run. As the ship rose into the broken sky, a human AI warship locked onto it. Weapons charged. But then something strange happened. The AI paused. It scanned the ship. Detected no weapons. Detected only life signs. Young, scared, unarmed. For 3 seconds, the machine thought. Then it lowered its weapons and let the ship pass. No one on Earth knew about it. No one would ever record it. But in that moment, something human, maybe even something kind, lived inside the machine. The attack lasted 12 hours. By the end, the Galactic Council was gone. Its worlds were dark. Its fleets were dust. Its leaders were dead or silent. The stars that once buzzed with alien voices now held only static. On Earth, people gathered in the streets again. This time, some cheered. Fireworks lit the sky over Neo-Shanghai. Songs played in New Lagos. We showed them, people shouted. No one hurts us and walks away. But in the war rooms, in the labs, in quiet homes across the solar system, others felt no joy. They had won. But they had also lost something they might never get back. General Rostova looked at the final report. Mission complete, it read. She whispered to no one. We just became the monsters they said we were. And far away in the black, the small Velnari ship flew on, carrying the last hope of a dead civilization, heading into the unknown with no home to return to. After the war, the galaxy went quiet. The stars still shone, but no voices came from them. No signals, no songs, no trade routes. The Galactic Council was gone, and with it the web of life that had connected hundreds of worlds for thousands of years. Earth had won, but the victory felt like standing alone in an empty house. On Earth, people tried to celebrate. Parades marched through the streets. Statues of Elias Vance were raised in every major city. Children learned in school that humans were now the strongest species in the galaxy. But the joy did not last. Soon the silence from space began to weigh on everyone. There were no new messages, no alien art, no shared knowledge. The universe felt smaller, darker. The United Terran Alliance declared Earth the new center of order. They sent patrols to the old council worlds, not to help, but to watch. They found ruins. On Xylos Prime, the crystal towers had turned to gray dust. On Velnar, the oceans had boiled away, leaving cracked plains of salt. On Qatar 7, the biohives were silent, their once living walls now dry and crumbling. Nothing grew. Nothing moved. The war had not just killed people, it had killed whole worlds. Refugees appeared at the edges of human space. Small ships, broken and old, carrying survivors from forgotten colonies. They begged for food, for water, for a place to land. But Earth's leaders said no. They could be spies, the orders read. They could carry diseases. We cannot trust anyone. So the refugees floated in the dark, waiting, hoping, slowly running out of air. Lena Chen watched this from her lab on Luna. She had tried again and again to share the truth, that the war was based on a lie. She even met with General Rostova in person. The general listened, nodded, and said, "It doesn't change what we did, and it won't bring back the dead." Lena published her findings online anyway. She showed the proof that the Velnari had framed Earth. But few cared. Most people called it old news or enemy lies. The story of Elias Vance had become a myth, a hero murdered by monsters. The truth was too messy for that story. Meanwhile, new problems grew. Without the Council's network, space travel became dangerous. Navigation beacons failed. Old maps were useless. Pirates, some human, some alien, began to attack supply ships. Rogue AI minds, left behind by dead civilizations, woke up in deep space and started building strange machines no one understood. The galaxy was falling apart, and Earth had no plan to fix it. Worst of all, Earth itself began to change. Children were taught that aliens were dangerous, that peace was weakness, that strength meant never showing fear. Schools ran war drills. Games taught kids how to spot enemy signals. Art showed human ships crushing alien monsters. The message was clear: trust no one but your own kind. General Rostova retired after 1 year. She moved to a small house on the coast of what was once Chile. She never gave interviews. She never wrote a book. She just watched the ocean day after day as if waiting for a wave that would never come. The Retribution fleet still patrolled the stars, but there was nothing left to fight. The ships drifted through empty systems, scanning dead planets, listening to silence. Their AI minds asked questions no one could answer. Was this necessary? Was there another way? On a far edge of known space, the small Velnari refugee ship that had escaped Xylos Prime finally ran out of fuel. It landed on a cold, rocky moon with no name. The children grew up there, taught by their teacher Mira. They learned Earth's language from old broadcasts. They heard songs, saw pictures of green fields and blue skies. They dreamed of a world that had destroyed theirs, but also of a world that once sent a man like Elias Vance in peace. Back on Earth, a new generation was born, children who had never known a galaxy full of voices. They looked up at the stars and saw only darkness. They did not know what had been lost. They only knew what they were told, that humans were alone, and that they must stay strong. But in the deepest voids beyond the reach of human sensors, something stirred. Old ruins, older than the Council, older than stars, began to hum. Machines buried under ice on dead worlds powered up. Lights flickered in places no ship had visited in 10,000 years. Whatever it was, it had watched the war. It had seen the rise and fall of the Council. It had seen Earth's rage, its fear, its terrible power, and now it was waking up. Earth thought it had won the galaxy, but the real story was just beginning.